Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Time now for the week that was. Let's take a look at the top stories that made headlines around the globe this week. Well, it was a day of celebration in Nigeria, with President Bola Tinubu presiding over the 64th Independence Day celebration at the State House. Despite a plan to make the celebration low-key, it had all the usual glamour associated with past anniversaries. Arise News correspondent Ferdinand Roja reports.
Held at the forecourt of the presidential villa, Nigeria's 64th independence anniversary celebrations retain all necessary ingredients befitting a national celebration, despite the federal government's decision to celebrate low-key.
Of Nigeria, with their cutlasses and cutting off their best and preparing themselves. Now, will make their way towards the national treasure, and they will attempt to lift it all by themselves.
Those in attendance, dressed in beautiful attires. Guests were treated to colorful military parade.
Senior officers, ladies and gentlemen, it is the 64th Independence Anniversary celebration.
Various routines, including exchange of guards, colors patrol, choreographed silent drills and precision marches in slow and quick time. The military drills, showing alertness, expert weapons handling and dedication, highlight the takeover of command from the colonialists and reinforce the important role of the armed forces in maintaining the nation's unity. Also, the rendition of sonorous tunes by the mass band and cultural performances showed strength in the nation's diversity. In attendance are the President and the Vice President of Nigeria, principal officers of the National Assembly, cabinet members, Chief Justice of Nigeria, service chiefs, diplomatic community, captains of industry, and representatives of the organized private sector and Nigerian students. Other events at the celebration are the signing of the Independence Anniversary Register, cutting of the Independence Anniversary cake, and releasing of pigeons. Away from the celebrations, some of those in attendance speak on the significance of the day.
You can see how Nigerians have all come together. Nigerians from all walks of life, they've gathered here and they put aside some of those temporary challenges that they have to believe in this country, to support Mr. President, to support the cause of this administration, to also show that despite all our challenges, Nigeria is a very resilient country. We're all coming together to march on to the prosperity that Mr. President has all promised us. By God's grace, we're all going there.
64 years ago, we started this journey compared to other countries. Some we have achieved better than, some we can achieve better than us, and that is why Mr. President is calling on all Nigerians to mobilize and support the choices that have made in order to ensure that Nigeria takes its place of pride.
Insecurity remains a major challenge and a clog in the wheel of Nigeria's progress. But the Chief of Defense Staff says this will soon be over.
The armed forces are determined to ensure that there is total peace in Nigeria. We will continue to do whatever it takes to restore full peace in Nigeria. We're happy, we are progressing. Like you've heard, we've taken down over 300 bandit leaders, Boko Haram leaders. We will continue to do more. 2G is our next target. We want to assure Nigerians that we want to get that man out of the way, and all other ones that are making Nigeria unsustainable. We are going to progress. That I can assure Nigerians.
The messages are built around the theme of this year's celebration, reflecting on the past, inspiring the future. A message by the President galvanizing hope. A spectacular parade by Nigeria's armed forces showing unity, and a colorful performance by the cultural troupe showing exactly what Nigerians can achieve if we all work together. Now, these are some of the messages highlighting Nigeria's 64th anniversary celebration. From the presidential villa, Ferdinand Roja, Arise News.
Well, there you have it, a very colorful celebration, at the Aso Rock Villa and in several states of the Federation. And then, of course, a lot of people have been critiquing the president's speech early that morning, where he empathized with Nigerians on the suffering and the hardship that they are facing. But he says the country is a work in progress. He also says that the dreams of our founding fathers have been achieved. For me, that was the part that really struck me in his message.
Well, I mean, it was a lovely day, no doubt, for me, October 1st. There was a bit of politics. There will always be a bit of politics in how people, will respond to that day. Some was sending funny messages about, don't greet me about, about independence and everything. But I think that given where we're coming from, given the state of insecurity in Nigeria, I think that going ahead with that anniversary celebration for me was a positive statement from the federal government. And the mere fact that the president and the vice president were there physically to reassure Nigerians was also good optics, I mean, looking at it from that perspective. But of course, you're right in terms of the content of the message of Mr. President that October 1st morning. It looks to me like almost 1.5 years into the administration was what the president is still offering is hope. And a lot of people would say in political economy that hope is not a strategy.
But then, should we really complain? Because that was what he actually promised us, to renew our hope. So I don't know, should we really be complaining at this point?
I thought the whole idea of the election of last year was to have hope renewed. And then once you renewed your hope, and then you begin to build on it. I'm not sure how much in terms of actualization many Nigerians have been able to build on the renewed hope agenda. It's an agenda, isn't it? Yeah, and we ought to know how this agenda will affect many people's lives. Yes, minimum wage has been increased, but of course we know that the value of what it has been increased to, it has not even been implemented, save for a few states like Edo, like Lagos, etc., that are already paying as much as what the federal government has now proposed. So it's a tough period, but then, like you said, what else can we do other than to keep on hoping? I saw, by the way, the national fabric, the contentious national fabric that many of the ministers actually wore them. I wonder what happened to that project, because not many people knew how it came about. I do not mind that design, but then you don't foist an otherwise beautiful idea on Nigerians without adequate preparation and without, a concrete explanation, which I think that it was lacking. If you had paid 25 million naira through the office of the First Lady or something like that to whoever designed it, how did it come about? Maybe
apparently they got the idea, from Zimbabwe. It's part of their measures that unite in Nigeria, which is, it's just so funny. They changed the national anthem.
We're getting inspiration from Zimbabwe.
I don't understand it.
I mean, my point is that it may not be a bad idea, but then how you now sell it to Nigerians will be the thing. Because seeing that a number of the ministers...
Will it even go round? That's another issue. Will it go round? Just like the palliatives?
The way that I don't think that it was meant to be like a dash to citizens. I think citizens were meant to key into it, and we have loads of designers everywhere who will have said, okay, this is a variant of what the First Lady is proposing, and we can do it better, and then let everybody buy into it. But then it looks like the thing, started and died in Abuja. But let's see what happens. All right, we proceed. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar during the week urged the National Assembly to amend the Constitution for a 6-year single term for the president and governors. Atiku, who conveyed his messages to the lawmakers through a memorandum to the Senate Committee on Constitutional Review, also proposed rotating the presidency between the North and South, while also calling for a raise in the minimum educational qualification for candidates to an ordinary national diploma and giving political parties more power in candidate selection. The former VP has remained consistent in his call for a single tenure since his days as vice president to former president Olusegun Obasanjo. Interesting development, which is not particularly new, given the position that the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has held since he was in power many, many years ago. But then a lot of people may want to ask that why is Atiku being insistent on a 6-year single term for the governors and the president, which of course, as you know, will require constitutional amendment. A bit of the constitutional amendment is at an embryonic stage, at the National Assembly now, but it doesn't look like is working at the pace and with the sort of force that people will expect. But then why the insistence from Vice President Atiku Abubakar? Can it have anything to do with the fact that by 2027, when the next round of election cycle will come, he will already be about 80 or 81 or thereabout, and therefore he will be looking for a 6-year single term rather than 2 years or 4 terms.
Well, definitely, some analysts, are already speculating that it's based on his age and his calculations that if he just succeeds at the next election, that he might not be able to do 2 terms due to his age. Some analysts have said that. But then, like you noted, he's been very consistent, ever since he was Vice President of Nigeria. So that hasn't really changed. And I guess part of what he's also trying to avoid was, something like the 3rd term syndrome, that we had at that time. So he's probably trying to avoid the issue of sit-tight leaders, But then at the same time, it also brings up the issue of constitutional amendments again. For how long are we going to keep amending this constitution? And, those that are saying we need to change, have maybe jettison this constitution and then write an entirely new constitution. Of course, their own voices come to the fore again, that we cannot keep amending the constitution every 4 years. But then at the same time, we have to wait and see how the National Assembly would actually, what they would actually do about his request. He has written to them. So we have to wait and get their reply.
We will have to wait, but a lot of people will have to engage with the proposition, particularly when he also proposes that the minimum standard, educational standard, should be raised from O levels to OND. Even the O levels that exist, which is what we have now, you even do not, you are not required to even tender the certificate. You just have to prove that you schooled up to a secondary school level and something like that. I find it curious though that the Vice President, who had to go back to school after his term in office and has earned about 2 masters, I believe, is now also proposing that rather than O levels, what we should have should be OND. What would be the basis? Why will it be impossible for a Nigerian president to be a university graduate? If you're not going to have a master, why would it be impossible?
Well, I don't think it's actually impossible. It's just saying that that's like the basics. You must at least have an OND. Even though I do understand your point, why can't we aim higher? Why do we always have to do that? But that's what we always strive, or that's what the politicians always strive for. At least they pay lip service to inclusivity. So maybe they're trying as much as possible to make sure that nobody is excluded from seeking office, regardless of your qualities.
Regardless of their
qualifications. And of course, we also talked about rotating the presidency, between North and South.
Which is also an interesting development, given the position that he took to run last year after a northerner had completed 8 years, which was the basis of the problem in PDP when Wike and all the other persons protested that no, after 8 years from the north, you shouldn't be running. You should give it to the South.
Nigerian politics, they always say
make it legal.
Nigerian politics is always very interesting. Well, moving on to other stories, Ghana's health service has confirmed the country's first case of Mpox this year, though the specific variant of the virus has not yet been disclosed. Health officials are conducting tests to determine if the case involved the clade IB variant, which has raised global concerns due to its rapid spread and limited understanding. The patient, a young male, is experiencing fever, rash, and body pains, and 25 contacts have been identified for monitoring. Ghana previously recorded Mpox cases in 2022 and 2023. The World Health Organization declared Mpox a global public health emergency in August, following an outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Well, Israeli military said it killed 15 Hezbollah militants in South Lebanon on Thursday and bombed Beirut after its forces suffered their deadliest day on the Lebanese front in a year of clashes with the Iran-backed group. An airstrike on the municipality building of the southern Lebanese town of Bint Jebel killed 15 Hezbollah members, Israel said. Lebanon's health ministry said the death toll in the Beirut strike had climbed to 9, and the Islamic Health Authority, a Hezbollah-linked civil defense group, said 7 of its staff, including 2 medics, had been killed. Witnesses reported hearing a massive blast, which a security source said had targeted a building in the district of Bachura, a few hundred meters from Parliament. The closest an Israeli strike has come to the central downtown district of Beirut.
Meanwhile, Yemen's Houthi rebels said they hit a vital target near the Israeli city of Tel Aviv on Thursday. Houthi military spokesperson, Brigadier General Yahya Sari, said in a pre-recorded video that Yemeni armed forces used a number of drones in the attack. It comes as Israeli ground forces enter Lebanon after days of Israeli airstrikes that killed over 1,000 people across the country, including Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah and other top officials, and earlier explosions of sabotaged electronic devices used by Hezbollah. The Houthis threatened escalating military operations targeting Israel on Thursday. The rebels maintain that the target ships linked to Israel, the US, or the United Kingdom to force an end to Israel's campaign against Hamas in Gaza. Okay, to meet up by interesting developments globally across the world. We know, of course, that the war in Lebanon, between the Israelis and Hezbollah, is escalating by the days. You know, the mpox in Ghana is also of concern, given the fact that there's also a new variant of COVID-19 that has been seen in America and in some parts of Europe, which everybody is talking about. We may not know the correlation yet, starting from the health, aspect of the 2 key stories that we read there. We may not know the correlation yet between mpox and the new variant of COVID-19, but both are of concern.
Definitely.
The way that our authorities responded to the mpox issue a few weeks ago in Nigeria, I think that should be the standard that the Ghanaian authorities should also, apply. If it's only one discovery, it's enough to raise concerns and for people to be aware of what is going on. Given the fact that Ghana, like Nigeria, is among the 16 ECOWAS members where citizens of member states can travel without visa. And you can just show up anywhere, not even at the airport, by road and every other thing. So it is important that Ghana should also work with other African countries like Nigeria who have had to deal with this successfully.
And I also think they need to boost the vaccination campaign. I recall that in August, Nigeria was the first African country, to take delivery of the mpox vaccines. So right now, there must be a massive campaign, to get more of those vaccines, not just in Nigeria, but in other African countries. And of course, like you said, there should be heightened, surveillance at all the entry ports, in all the several African countries. And then moving on to the issue of the Middle East war, it's quite scary, isn't it? I mean, the way it's escalating, from Gaza, now Lebanon is involved, and then the Houthis in Yemen, they are also responding. So it's stoking fears of a regional war. And it seems there's a little bit of hypocrisy from the West. On one hand, they are calling for de-escalation of the conflict. On the other hand, they're supplying Israel with the weapons that it needs. So it just seems right now like the United Nations is powerless at the moment, really, to prevent this. And some people are wondering, is this the beginning of the Third World War?
The Third World War that Donald Trump has been talking about, that if you allow his opponent, to get power. I think you're very correct in terms of the hypocrisy of the West, United Nations, and especially in my opinion, the United States of America. We saw yesterday the press conference by President Biden, curiously, at the time that Kamala Harris was giving a speech at a campaign rally. And a few people thought that would, that undermined, Kamala in a way, given that the President Biden was, talking about Israel having to, the need to look for alternative ways, to prosecute the war. So what precisely is America saying through President Joe Biden? Is it to de-escalate? Is it to bring about, what was that popular word that they use? Ceasefire. Or you are just basically asking Israel to proceed with caution. I think that clarity has to be there, especially now that the American election is exactly 4 weeks.
For that same reason, I doubt we'll actually have clarity on this matter. If you're going to be seeking clarity, you'll have to wait, till after the elections.
All right, that will do it on the week that was, but let's take a minute or two to bring you up to date with a couple of stories making the rounds. And we'll start with this. After making up privately, Donald Trump and Georgia Governor Brian Kemp used the aftermath of Hurricane Helene to put their detent on public display, with the former president praising a fellow Republican blistered just months ago and promising to treat the state well if he returns to the White House. Trump, the Republican presidential nominee, and Kemp, a popular second-term governor, appeared outside Augusta to tout recovery efforts after Helene made landfall in Florida and wrought widespread damage as it moved inland through Georgia and other states. The appearance in the town of Evans involved none of the vitriol that had defined the two Republicans' relationship since November 2020, when Trump insisted, falsely, that he defeated Democrat Joe Biden and chided Kemp for refusing to help him overturn the result. Kemp and Trump met privately before addressing reporters.
And as Israel's war with Hamas reaches its one-year mark, it can seem on the surface that much of life in the country has returned to normal. But with many still reeling from Hamas's October 7 attack and hostages remaining in captivity, many Israelis feel depressed, despondent, and angry as the war stretches into its second year. Uncertainty over the future has cast a pall over virtually every part of daily life, even as people try to maintain a sense of normalcy. Hamas's attack, in which some 1,200 people were killed and 250 kidnapped, shattered Israelis' sense of security and stability in their homeland. Many have been rattled by the war's evolution. Nearly 100 hostages remain in Gaza, with less than 70 believed to be alive. Reminders are everywhere, on streets, squares, and at Ben Gurion International Airport. Posters of hostages held by Hamas hang for all to see.
The employees are all from the Otef. Most of them are from Kibbutz Reim. We all want to go back to live in our kibbutz, which we cannot do. So for now, at least we have, a place to work at. The war still continues for almost a year. And I feel that if we won't live, we will die. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we must take ourselves out of bed and continue to live and to work and to have like the hope. Because without this hope, we don't have anything to do here, I don't think that we want to live this way. And the desperation is killing. And we must have this hope that our, all Israel will stand up and get up from this massacre and this disaster that we've been through this whole year.